Hello and welcome back to Heroic Stats, episode 36, an Any Heroics podcast, the only podcast which selects its captain based on the amount of melted cheese they currently have stuck to their teeth from drinking hot soup. Don't ask why I have cheese and soup. I'm just that kind of guy. We are joined this evening, of course, myself, Stephen, Dave, Mr. Palmer. Again, we have the wonderful Jay Hansen getting up very early in the morning from Mountain Gates Gaming. Say hi, Jay.
Say hi.
Lovely. That's basically the memo. Jay, we've already had you on before. If you haven't gone out and checked out the Mountain Goats Gaming YouTube channel, what are you doing? Don't listen to our shitty podcast. Go and watch their stuff. It's really well done. It's really well produced. It's also got Sean from Last Alliance of Noobs and Men on there as well. They run tournaments. Spoiler for later. And yeah, lovely amount of content. And hopefully they'll have an Instagram where someone starts posting their non-metallic metal Easterlings, which
We do.
Yes.
I'm just terrible at actually committing to posting shit.
Yeah, I know that feeling. For those of you unfamiliar with the podcast, we're here, of course, to run down the events of the previous weekend. Yes, I agree, Dave. I assume he just roboted out for everyone there.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you are unfamiliar with the podcast, what a loser you are is probably what Dave would have said if his internet connection was working. We're here to run down the events of the previous weekend, including previous UK events, previous events from abroad, and yeah, have a little hobby chat in general. But first of all, we are, of course, sponsored / affiliated. I say sponsored, that no money actually changes hands. It's purely an affiliation. Don't ban me, YouTube. We're affiliated with the wonderful Seventh City Collectibles. Stockists of all your favorite systems. They buy secondhand goods, sell secondhand goods. They've got cards, Lorcana, Yu-Gi-Oh! I almost said YouTube there. Pokemon. They also do events, including the Seventh City GP 2025, which you should go to, no matter where you are. Jay, I expect you to devote that weekend of your life, screw your work, travel over to the UK for what is hopefully going to be the biggest UK tournament ever, potentially rivaling that other one in Manchester that sometimes people talk about.
Really? That's exciting.
Yeah, it's shaping up to be quite the extravagant and exciting affair.
That's certainly what we'll want.
Yeah, well, I think that's what we all want because Will runs arguably the best events in the UK, and he's got a big enough venue now to host 200 people, which would be pretty rad to see.
Jesus.
Yeah, because we are, of course, a very multinational community in MESBG, including, oh, my keyboard hit didn't work, including the Netherlands, which is our first tournament of the weekend. Is a long-expected tourney by Dirk Jan Summerson, who sent me these results. Just everything I needed perfectly, as Jay also did, I have to add. Just because he felt like it. So big shout out, Dirk. Obviously, we've had him on the podcast before. He's very active in the community, including the Guardians community. So yeah, thank you very much. So this was a 6-game, 750-point pool veto event with 36 players. It was an additional hobby competition for providing and designing one table with terrain and mat / board provided by yourself. Most sporting was won by Corner, I'm going to say. I apologize for butchering that name. I'm British and everything I do is anglicised. And Best Painted was won by Tim H. And Best Gaming Board was also won by Corner. So let's have a little look at the host of the Witch King Legendary Legion.
Fuck yeah. With
a host of 3D printed bits, a few GW official bits which have been converted. You've got the official Witch King model at the top. We've got what looks to be a 3D printed Tainted. Got the new Shadow of Ruodur on the left there, which is pretty cool. To have that done in, what is it, a week? It's pretty impressive work. It's just got a really nice running theme to it, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Really like theme.
Yeah. I do especially like that because when you end up with 40-ish orcs, having them all uniform and look as though they're rank and file, like the Morannon orcs can do when you have too many of them, and there are only certain poses which don't have the shields and weapons melded to their face. Basically, every model in this army looks unique, which I think that is an incredible achievement slash thing to commit to when you're working with an army like orcs. Very, very, very cool. And there's even some custom objective markers on there. So lovely, well done.
It's very nice looking. I don't know where those orcs are from, but I often see people go with Angmar orc 3D prints because they can look a little bit fruitier, a little bit more unique.
Bit spectral.
I think they're from
ghostly.
Deval.
I was going to say yeah.
I'm not that familiar with your third-party 3D print stuff, to be honest.
Yeah, if we're going to have non-legit GW stuff, it will be maybe recast at worst.
Well, I don't. I mean, like, I like the idea of running different sculpts. I'm not sort of like saying I don't approve of it. I'm saying I'm not like down on it. I've never really looked, which is maybe I don't do any 3D printing myself, you see, so I have to rely on useless
It's a trap.
for me.
We did, of course, have also the Best Board Provided award, which, as an Australian, hopefully you can comment on the amount of terrain on this board. It's got a very nice theme to it, I will say. There are quite a few firing lanes that I'm looking at. Which,
God help you if you get Storm the Camp.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it is a very nice, consistent theme, and I would note that each board presented is not only you contributing from the community, but it's nice to give people a chance to kind of say, well, this is how I'd like to design my board, and then they did actually have 3 independent judges there to have a look at the terrain and make sure that it was judged on playability, how it looked, and general theme, I believe. So that's quite nice.
I think that's an okay board, but I think if I was going to wish list it, I'd maybe shift the center tree to the right slightly, and then have like a cabin in the wood, big square line of sight blocker to plonk in the middle there. Maybe
at the minimum, I'd do that, and then I'd have like a few scattery bits around here to fill the space that they've made. But yeah, it is. Sorry, that's me.
I mean, like I said, I think it's a cool idea. If you're someone who's like running an event and you maybe want to upsize it, it can be quite an ask to be like, putting on the TOs, especially in developing smaller scenes. Like in this country, we have quite a comfortable network of, if not stores or TOs who happen to have a lot of terrain, but also they can network and borrow and bring it up. And I know sometimes there's been things where TOs have given away free tickets to people who are able to bring boards worth of terrain because it lets them scale up the event, and it just essentially allows them to sell more tickets. So it's just worthwhile for everyone involved. I know Dowie and Sean often bring boards worth of terrain to help out TOs because they have loads of it.
Yeah, and that is lovely to see. We see a lot of that, especially as Dave's already mentioned, in the southwest of the UK, where we've got lots of shops and people with 3D prints.
The best region in the UK.
Some would say the most competitive. At me, central region. Come at me.
Run more 90s, you losers.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Anyway. Moving on to the winning lists. Now, I'm quite excited for some of these winning lists because they're starting to represent what the UK meta almost looks like, which is lovely. You're finally getting there. However, first of all, we do have my boy, my new love, the Dragon Emperor host. Third place was Alexander. His list, to summarize, is the Dragon Emperor, of course, big chairman, Brorgit, Rutabi, 2 bows, 2 cataphracts, a war drum, a drake, and then a smattering shield and pipes. Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty standard apart from the drake. The 3 heroes at 750 that's the sort of smallest points level where you can get all 3 and I mean, he's got what, 40? Yeah, 40. There you go. That's basically the first points level where it becomes really viable to run them. But I mean, you could tighten your belt a little bit with this. But I mean, the Drake is kind of late. I don't know. I don't think they're that good, but
They're cool.
Have one.
I assume, cool, yeah. Jay, you
some pretty nice 3D prints.
Did you rule it to be on a 40mm base?
I don't know. I can see the argument. It's like a half trolls on a 25mm base. So it's like you could put it as a 25mm base, but personally I feel like it should go on a 40mm.
Yeah, so is that what you ruled, is what I'm asking, sorry.
This isn't his tournament.
Oh shit. I am absolutely smacked up. This is not your tournament. I'm really sorry.
I think that's okay. I'm happy to answer.
If you put him on a 40mm, that would allow pikes to support them, which is a pretty big allowance, especially in this list. And based on the sort of the way they're described and the other sort of equivalent things, it's like probably 40mm. Anything that moves on 4 legs, I think generally goes on a 40.
Yeah.
Apart from Maggots Dogs. Shout out.
Yeah, big shout out Maggots Dogs.
Shout out Grit Fan Wolf.
And new werewolves, they're on 50.
Yeah, but I mean bigger than
one thing I would say in this list, if you did want to optimize it, obviously the War Drake's a bit of a meme pick. You compare it to a Beorning or the new werewolf profile and you go, oh gosh, this is awful.
Not awful, that's not that good.
Yeah, well, exactly. You take that out, you take one of the cataphracts out, obviously not the one with the drum, and you make sure everything in your Dragon Emperor warband, the 3 black dragons, they still have shield and pike. Because ideally, although they're better at charging by 1 courage pit, you want them on the back because they're the ones giving the fight 5, and you don't want them getting killed early doors.
Courage isn't an issue to me because you got Rutabi. So if you're against not Rutabi, Broge, if you're against terror causing stuff, you just throw Fury up, and then everyone, then you don't even think about it.
Yeah, the 2 bows I think is an objectively good choice. I don't like it myself, but I'm very fussy. They're very good for just sitting on an objective, or in a mirror matchup, as has been pointed out to me. You can force people to come to you in Lords of Battle and things like that because you've got bows.
My personal favorite kind of bows are the kind where no one expects them to do anything, because that way, that's where all good stories come from. You're like, oh yeah, I took 1 Orc Bowman in my Angmar, and then he did this, that, and the other. Basically, everything they do that isn't nothing becomes a story, and I think that's
when you expect nothing, something becomes incredible.
Yeah, that's what my parents always tell me.
Yeah. So yeah, very, very standard-ish looking Easterling list, and well done, Alexander. Moving on to the second place. The second place list was Roy with a Rivendell Numenor list. Not quite what we would see in the UK necessarily, which is why I'm quite excited for it.
I choose to believe he's known mononymously as Roy, regardless of surname. That's
yes. He is the only Roy. I've never seen another one.
Yeah, it's just kind of neat.
Yeah,
I don't think it's that good, but I think it's. I mean, like it was. I mean, it's probably fine. I mean, it's not optimized, but because you've got Elrond in there. If you're not using Elrond to get extra knights, like there's no march in this, and it doesn't have. It's not overcooking the bow limit, as far as I can see.
No, it's not.
Which it should be if you're going to have Elrond, in my opinion. Hang on, wait, is it not?
No, because there are 4 Numenor bows and 8 Rivendell bows, right? Wait, hang on a second. 6.
Yeah, there are.
Yeah. Oh, so it's overcooking it by 1, I think. 8. 14,
I can't count
20. Yeah, the bow limit without the Rivendell Knights is 18.6. So it is precise. It is overcooking. It is overcooking. The Rivendell Knights are deceptive. Oh,
only by 1, but yeah.
Don't know how that happened. I didn't even click anything.
I don't. Yeah, no, I mean, maybe I'm being overly picky. I think like Linda, I think is maybe he's like a little bit better than it seems like he is when you first look at his profile, because he's cheap and he's fortitude and he makes L1 better. But also, I think it's a little whack to run Rivendell without Círdan.
Yeah,
because he's unbelievably good. Especially when you're not capping out your war bands. Like you could totally put him in there.
You do feel like this list will be better if it was Glorfindel and Círdan? Potentially.
Well, I think Elrond is an okay choice because actually Elrond does provide some power. He brings foresight points, which are really strong a lot of the time, not always, obviously. And then he brings what's the thing called? Wrath of the Bruinen, and he's just a fairly tanky leader. He doesn't exactly kill stuff, but then neither does Glorfindel.
True.
I think the thing I actually like the most about Círdan in a list like this would be it means that you don't necessarily need to rush up the board against someone who shoots better than you. Because you can sit there with blinding light. It's very unlikely you're going to get outshot so heavily that you still have to run at the board. So you can get away without using March. Whereas this, if someone puts down 15 crossbowmen and Vrasku and a ballista, it's like, what are you going to do? You're going to get shot to pieces.
And you're already starting with 33 models, so...
Yeah, whereas elf bows with blinding light actually outshoot crossbows pretty handily.
Yeah.
Because they got the strength 3 bows and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he got second, so maybe he knows something I don't.
How do you feel about Elrond, Jay?
Oh, mate, he's not Glorfindel, so he's instantly better.
Do you guys really hate Glorfindel that much? I was watching
I think he's a pile of shit.
I was watching the Golems Gamers re-rank of the Noobs and Men S-tier heroes, and there was a lot of shit talk about Glorfindel. And I was just sat there thinking, like, is it the lack of magic in your meta? You don't appreciate how good the Fortified Spirit is, or is it just he doesn't kill anything? Or
look, he's still what, strength 4, so he still does work. He just isn't. I don't know. He's got a good fight value. He's got all the shit you want for an elf. He just doesn't perform the way that you would want him to. If you were like considering the man kills Balrogs, he's struggling to kill an orc sometimes, and he's just the most underwhelming model I think I've played in a long time.
I think that's a fair
in terms
assessment.
of like magic bullying and that sort of stuff, you pair him with, a Numenorian of some sort, and all of a sudden magic doesn't really bother you. And you combo the two on horse to kind of hit smack and then keep going. I get it, but I don't know. I think for how underwhelming he can be, it's just frustrating.
He's the safe leader, brings a fight 7 Elven Mage Sword, but nothing else.
Yeah.
I like him, but I've never really used Rivendell myself, so.
I've always struggled with my relationship with Glorfindel. I objectively admire.
Say you hate him, so.
Yeah, objectively admire him, but I just can't love him. He's like my least favorite of my 3 sons. Yeah.
Gorgeous model though.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the new Glorfindel model is just, it might be the best thing that Games Workshop have ever released, maybe.
Yeah.
No, I like the plastic Elrond more than the Glorfindel personally, but that's just me.
That's fair.
It's more dynamic.
That was a very big Elrond Glorfindel tangent. Moving on to the first place list, which I think is yellow. I'm gonna say
24 models.
Yeah, it's
oh shit!
This is an absolute giga list, because you look at, without looking at the numbers, you're like, oh, there's about 40 models in there. No, it's a 24 model, all mounted beyond 2 Dead Marsh Spectres, and whether you call werewolves mounted or not.
They're not mounted.
Yeah, I mean, they're not, obviously.
Poor bro could only afford 1 pack of the werewolves, though. He probably had to mortgage his house to get it.
No, he's got 3.
Amen.
He's got 3. Oh shit!
Yeah.
This guy's a baller.
Oh my god.
So yeah, let's run through this one. He's got the Witch King, because of course you can't leave home without the Witch King, best hero in the game. Crown and Wargill, horse, 3 might, 3 fate, and 4 will, which is slightly too expensive if I were going to criticize. He's got an Angmar warrior with bow, then 4 wild riders. Sorry, Angmar wild riders. Every wild rider is an Angmar wild rider here. 1 Angmar wild rider with orc bow, a werewolf, a Dead Marsh Spectre, an Angmar orc captain with wild, 2 more wild riders, 1 more with an orc bow, a werewolf, Gulliver, an Angmar wild rider with banner and shield, 2 more Angmar wild riders, 1 more Angmar wild rider with bow, a werewolf, another Dead Marsh Spectre, and then a Barrow with 2 more Angmar wild riders, one of which has a bow. Basically, They've just come out with 20 models that move 10 inches ish, and gone, yeah, and what, mate?
I'm fascinated by this because I have to know what did he face and at what scenario.
It wasn't on Longshanks because I had exactly the same reaction. I thought, hang on a second.
Like, my first thought looking at this is that barrel white sticks out like a sore thumb to me. The single walk warrior with bow is fine because you're looking at like you're looking at like if you want to get an even number, and he clearly can't fit. He's not got the shield on the captain. He's done all my favorite things. In this particular instance, I rate the extra will and fate on the Witch King because he needs to work in this list. There's no room for him to be cheap and cheerful and have a shuttle or backing him up or something. He has to do it all magically. So I don't mind the other thing. He's like the leader and everything. And there's not a lot of ways you can bail him out if he gets ganged up on, or all sorts of things can go wrong in a list like this. So actually, 155, or not, for me, a horse Witch King should never be bigger than 160. 160 is the absolute biggest, and that's with the 15 will. Morgleblade never bother with it. But yeah, like the only thing you could maybe change is if you went for the 13 will or the 2 fate, which up to you. You could have another Warg Rider over the Walk Warrior with bow. But like other than that, the barrel white is going to get kind of isolated potentially, which in some scenarios could hurt you, like Fog of War and stuff, for example. But I mean, he's not likely to run away. Barrel white's what, courage 6?
I think so, yeah.
They're pretty good. So like you can just hide at the back of the board even if you break. And it shouldn't be underestimated how hard Gully hits. Like you can whack your werewolves in. You can use the Warg Riders to screen the flank so you can't get surrounded. Gully can jump on in, and you can just yeet models around on your spear line. And if you're not playing Fog, Gully, or like Assassination, Gully isn't worth any points. So you can go kind of hog wild with him. He doesn't have a banner, does he?
He does.
Yeah, on Warg.
Does he?
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. I was like, why can't I see it? Yeah. Okay. Also, a big point. He's not bought any shields. He's not bought any throwing spears. I think this list is pretty cool.
This list is absolutely
very cool. In fact,
Fight 3 cavalry is the new meta in the Netherlands.
It's big balling. What I would say is, this sort of shows to me this is like if you ran this with if you sacked off the barrel white and a bunch of models and had like 8 plus werewolves.
Yeah,
I actually think this is probably really good. And this is interesting because this is something I was talking about when I first saw the profiles with some of the other guys who were at the tournament in Scotland. And we were thinking that something like this could actually go really hard. Like forget the new profiles.
The wolf pack.
Heroes. Forget that. Literally, Spectres, werewolves, Witch King, Gulliver, and then probably a captain. And at about 800 points, you get like 26 models, and I think that would probably be pretty hot.
Yeah.
And this is proving my point a little bit.
It's definitely...
I would say I'm very surprised something like this could be like Emperor, for example.
Yeah, you feel like the cavalry just kind of hits the brick wall.
Well, I mean, they're fight 5, so they can win, but also it's like they don't. Yeah. Honestly, I don't really have notes because I don't know how this list necessarily plays on the tabletop. I more have questions, which is a good thing. That's really good. I like to see things that I haven't seen before, and it's very annoying that this is coming out like 3 months before we get a new edition of the game because it's like we don't even get to really revel in the new book being crazy and weird wiki fun times. It's like you just have to move on. It's a pain in the ass.
There's no time for thoughts.
Job.
Just move on and accept how great this list was. Big shout out Yellow because this is so cool. Moving on to the second of the weekend's events. Guldur in 60 seconds 3, Hobbiton Hunger Games. Ton organizer was Luke Bilton. It was 3 games, 500 points, random in pools. He does love his AI. With 32 players, which meant at the end of the tournament there were 3 people on 3-0, which is pretty wild. Best painted was Tommy Spate, and most sporting was Nick William, who was playing Vanquishers, which is an
Wild.
interesting choice at 500 points, and B, impressive that he's still got most sporting. So well done, Nick. Tournament results again was sent spontaneously to me by Jack. Oh my God, I've forgotten his name. Jack Thurlbeck. Gosh, how rude of me. I'm extra rude tonight. Who also shout out, if you're in the Northeast, there is a Northeast Middle Earth gaming group. I will hopefully link it in the description below. So yeah, shout out to you guys because they've created a really big community over there this year, which is really nice. And I think they're running 100 next year.
We bumped into a bunch of them at Ripon.
Yeah.
What I would say is, it's great that you guys are running 100, but also, bloody hell, it's a long way to go for me. Hopefully I'll win this year and I don't have to feel necessary to go all over the country again next year.
Yeah.
Like, that's ever going to happen.
Gosh. So yeah, moving on to the best painted photos. These I've actually stolen from a Tommy Spate picture on Facebook. He posted a bunch on the GBHL group. So I had to search for you there because unfortunately Jack couldn't get them to me in time, which is understandable. But yeah, so it was a lovely Easterling and Veregs of Card list. I believe it's an Easterling captain alongside the chariot and some cav and whatnot.
I guess those Minister of Voids are just there for flavour then.
Yeah, so I think this is, and you'll see in the background the book. I believe it's called, is it Shadow in the East? The old source book. It's the scenarios with, obviously you can see Madril there, and Kyrian in the back. It's all those scenarios. Yeah, Kyrian, right?
Something about the way you said that just made me laugh.
Kyrian hitting it from the back. So yeah, this is some really crisp looking Veregs of Khand, which is nice to see.
Yeah, it's a real it's a nice execution of the box concept.
Yeah.
I'll always respect someone who can execute a solid scheme. Also, are those freehand sons?
So I did actually have a look. He confessed that they were stenciled on his. He got a pre-made stencil. However, he has done the shading on the top half of the sun quite nicely because there's a variation in the color, which is
very nice.
Good job. There's Kyrian about to get sparked out by a Candy Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, that could happen.
That could happen. He's only 5 points.
That's true. They are the same 5 value.
Moving on to the man, the myth, the legend, the one who sent me the results in the first place, Mr. Jack Thurlbeck.
I thought he said he ran it.
No, it was run by Luke Bilton.
Oh, now we see why he wanted to send you the results. Vested interest.
Wow, I couldn't possibly comment. Let's have a little look at this one. I think this is quite similar to something we've seen before from Mr. Clubley. So it's Halls of Thranduils with Halls of Thranduils, plural. Survivors of Lake Town. It's a classic Thranduil with heavy armor, extra sword, big crown, a bunch of elves, including 1 palace guard, 1 with banner, and a Mirkwood cap, alongside the smattering of 6 bows. And then we've also got a Lake Town militia captain for that cheap march and additional bodies, with 5 militia with shield, 2 with bow, 2 with spear bow, and 2 with spear, for a total of 30 models, 5 might, and 10 bows, which are 500 points. Nothing to be sniffed.
Not bad.
Clubley's difference with this was he had Thranduil in his pants and had, I think, 2 extra models.
I believe that is correct, yeah.
Which is funny. Also, it's funny watching him stressing about all the old bows shooting at Thranduil when he's D4. Like,
they're wounding me on 5s.
Yeah, I mean, it works well. I like Mirkwood cavalry. Everything in this list is actually quite well costed, apart from the Palace Guard. That's literally the only thing in there that isn't really good value for points. And that's kind of offset by the fact that Mirkwood cavalry are insanely nice value.
Yeah. If you don't think that Elven Made Glaives are worth 2 points, then wait till you see an Iron Hills backed up or Erebor Reclaimed backed up with Elven Made Glaives against your Fight 5 army, because Elven Made Spears, gosh, they hit differently.
Yeah, I mean, Elven Made Glaives and Elfbow models feel expensive because they have 2 2-point upgrades, but it's just they do a lot. I think this is a really nice list. You're unlikely to meet things that are actually going to outshoot you heavily. Obviously, it can happen, but at 500, there's not that much heavy shooting running around, and it's flexible. You've got some late town at the front if you want to have them to cheap blockers. You've got some elves for the front. You've got a mixture of who's at the front and the back, which means that it can sort of each part of it can fight independently, theoretically, if needs be.
Yeah.
And again, as I said, late town militia captains, even a late town militia captain backed up by an elf is actually very killy.
Yeah,
he's got an act, what a pick.
It's 2 attacks
I
at strength 5 and 1 at strength 3.
Yeah. The late town militia captain is a pick, but it's actually a fish hook.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, what kind of fucking fisherman fights? That's some brutal shit.
It's dirty tactics, isn't it?
It's horrible. It's like, ooh.
Yeah.
Also, he comes with a spear for free, which is pretty nice.
Jack also wanted to say that he was looking forward to you tearing a hole in his list. So A, shout out Jack, and B, we haven't. It's actually a good list, Jack.
Listen, Jack. Yeah, I don't really have a lot to say about that negative because it's basically how I would build it. So try harder to write a bad list, and I can laugh at it if you want.
This is one of those lists where I think people always have to be reminded that it's a Green Alliance and the elves get the +1 to wound, because in a small points value like this, albeit Thranduil's expensive, when he's buffing let's say 3 elves to the left and 3 elves to the right of him, here I am stuck in the middle with you, they've all got +1 to wound, so you're cutting through D6, you're cutting through dwarves, you are chopping here. Especially when they're
I mean, anything that isn't a power list at 500 is going to struggle with something like this.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is going to struggle into something like 70 Goblin Town models or something similar like that.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, to be fair, Aura of Dismay can slow them down a lot, actually.
Yeah, true, very true, especially with the Courage 3 Goblin King. But yeah, moving on to the second place list. Boo! It's Black Riders. Lost Barfer, I think he's taken these a few times before. If you want to say Black Riders, take Black Riders. I'm mainly messing with you. It's got 6 models: Witch King, Horse, 3 Might, 2 Fates, 4 Ring Wraiths with Horse, 2 Might, and a Fate, and 1 Ring Wraith with an additional Might and Fate. Not much to say about this. It's
If it was me, I'd drop a Fate on the Witch King and have another Might.
That's what I was thinking. The Might is, is so valuable.
In my opinion, I think it's almost non-negotiable to have maxed out Might on this list because it needs so much of it. Numbers of rates is important, obviously, but you can't really have more than 6 at 500. The fact that he was even able to get 6 is impressive. And yeah, that's a pretty formidable magical bombardment he's got there. Like this, for example, wouldn't have a problem with Thranduil because you'd just kill him, or you'd at the very least take away his magic.
Yeah, but Thranduil dies hopefully by turn 2, and then I mean, obviously it doesn't enjoy.
Unless you're playing Recon, and then they're like, although to be fair, actually at small points they don't actually like against 30 models. They probably could kill enough before those models could get off the board.
It is worth noting that the scenarios for this tournament were Seize the Prize, Contest of Champions, and Hold Ground.
Contest of Champions with this is a brave choice.
Oh, sorry, they were randomly rolled. It wasn't predetermined. This was just.
I thought meant in the pack.
So Contest is very much 50-50. You either win or you get charged and probably lose. I would say it's fair to say for Black Riders. However, if you've ever played where they win the roll-off, my God, is it a depressing time? They just run away after nuking your leader and then go.
It's one of those things where they have to make a choice at the start of the game whether or not they are going to deploy at the front as a block to protect the Witch King, or if they're going to deploy at the back and just say, right, we're having a 50-50.
Yeah. So yeah, well done, Loz. Moving on to the first place list, Mr. Alan Cameron with Pits of Dol Guldur. Jay, run us through this one, will you?
Sure. You got a big Chad Azog on White Warg, 7 Hunter Orcs, 4 Gundabad Spears, a Fell Warg, Hunter Orc Captain on a Warg, 6 Hunter Orcs, a Hunter Orc with a Warhorn, 4 Gundabads with Spear, and another Fell Warg.
Now, there's something very stinky about this list, Jay. What is it that's very stinky about the list?
Mate, it's got to be Azog.
No, it's not Azog.
What
That
are you
Hunter
talking
Rock
about? The
captain.
Warhorn?
Why have you put it on a Warg?
Yeah, that is an interesting choice.
It just
I don't
objectively
mind
makes it
Warhorn.
worse.
I don't like the Warhorn at 500 points because you're costing yourself 3 models. I definitely don't like the Warhorn Thurlbeck combo on the Hunter. Yeah, Gundabad's a spear, backing up Hunter Rocks is pretty strong, but yeah, you're costing yourself 4 models. Obviously, it didn't stop him because he won the tournament. But yeah, mounting Hunter Rocks is almost never worthwhile. Captains actually, there's more of an argument, but generally speaking, you're better off having them on foot.
Yeah,
I think
the Alan actually absolute giga chat he is. Got 33 out of 36 VPs and gave away none.
Jesus.
So yeah,
why didn't he get all the others?
I know, pathetic.
Sort out.
Not max
Out.
VPs. What are you doing, brother?
What the hell?
What's the
okay?
What's the Aussie take on Hunter Orcs? Because they're definitely a profile that we think are really good, like 600 and below. But is there...
Oh, look, we're much the same, man. You just spare them out and throw them in. The only thing I can think of with a Felwag on the captain here is the fact that it could be like a pseudo Fimble for a bit of, if you can mount some sort of characters, especially because you only got 2.
Yeah.
I don't see in this list specifically. I don't think it's a shit shout.
I
You have a bit
suppose
more mobility. You can have a couple of knockdowns with all the strength. Like it's not terrible, And then all of a sudden you can kind of have Azog and him running together rather than just being Azog the one that can move really fast.
I guess if you can guarantee the charge at least 1 turn, if not 2 turns, because you've got the auto Cs, then the 6 dice with the knockdown.
Huge.
I'm almost convinced. Almost convinced.
Huge.
For me, I think the main thing this list struggles from is one bad turn blows an irreconcilable hole in your line, and so I think the most numbers you can have, the better. The Warhorn, I don't like at 500, but I know I don't think it's bad. It's just a matter of flavor. Like I think 4 additional models is almost always going to be better than this, and I agree with not taking a banner because you're going to have more dice on your opponent anyway, even with a banner or the same amount. And bodies is bodies, but then to not take a banner and then take a horn and a warg feels wrong to me. I don't know. Azog is a beast and very, very hard to stop at 500 points, though, which is probably one of the reasons why this has done so well. Because free heroic combat Azog is a permanent threat because every hero has to respect the possibility that you're just going to jump them. And then if they strike, you're like, all right, I'll just kill 2 more guys. Goodbye. It's a pain in the ass.
One of the
free combats are amazing.
This list played Contest of Champions against the 3 model Vanquisher list, which was Gandalf, Saruman, and Galadriel, which is quite funny. I did see on the long stacks.
This is just going to body that, though.
Yeah, absolutely demolish.
Unless they roll a 6 on both of their resists, and you like crap out double one it, because you only have to survive 1 turn. You only have to survive 1 turn of magicking, because I mean he does have the horn, so fair enough. And if you're going to seize the priority in first turn, so they're not going to have terrifying auras up. Galadriel will obviously, but you need to tag her with 2 or 3 models, so she can't, or 2 models, so you can't banish them. And then it's all right. See you later, Gandalf. Smash. Or even Saruman. He's got heroic defense, but if you trap him up and hit him with that Azog and a Hunter Orc, it's just too much stuff. That would have been a 1-turn job, probably.
Yeah.
Because it's okay, he's got defense, but I've got a shit ton of dice, and I can just roll a ton of 6s.
And you can force Gandalf to call the heroic defense as well, because you inevitably call the 3 heroic defense. Does Gandalf not have heroic defense?
Nope.
Oh.
Neither Gandalf so far does.
Well, you can't force him to call defense because he doesn't have it, and that will be cheating.
Yeah. Well, he'd probably have to strike just in case.
Yeah, true. Moving on.
Try and make something work, but yeah, that's a pretty funny matchup.
Moving on to the last event of the weekend, which we are covering. It was Mountain Goats Gaming Open, Oh, sorry. Mountain Goats Gaming Open.
Woohoo! What
The
a
tournament
card.
organizer was Mr. Jay Hanson. Jay, talk us through the conditions of this tournament. Give us your spiel, sell it to us.
Yeah, this was a big one for us, and it consumed like a good 2, 3 months of my life. Honestly, your chat about like terrain before resonated with me a lot because it basically we had probably about 10 tables worth of terrain, and then all of a sudden we had to like double that because I wanted to go 40 players max, and all the terrain like I wanted to have. So I'm not relying on anyone just in case someone's sick,
You went up to
because it
50
was
in the
hosted
end,
up.
right?
No, I capped it at 40. I think that
Okay,
was more just for my sanity.
fair
And in
enough.
terms of Queensland, to host roughly 38 players, all from Queensland, that was great. It was huge. So big shout out to all my fellow Queensland people who came out to play. 800 points, 2 hour rounds. Get your shit, get set up, and then off you go. And it was just random pool veto. So I'll just roll, yell it out, and then off we went. And it was nice to kind of see Queensland progressively start bringing some more filthy lists in the mix of things. So that was nice. It was good. And yeah, look, overall, it was a really smooth weekend that on the Saturday night resulted in Sean and I having a slap off, which was great.
Well, next
I bet
time
you won.
we need that filmed so we can
Oh,
put the footage in.
for the sake of myself, I don't think I want it there.
He's a big guy, isn't he? We've had this chat before.
Brother sent me to New Zealand with a slap man.
Blimey. Um, does
Uh,
that
big
mean
up.
for those budding other Queensland people who didn't make it, you're going to be running more?
Correct. Correct.
Excellent.
So MGG Open will be a staple. It'll be our big annual event. This is for Queensland. We have our big 120 points. So it's like your equivalent of a 100. So it was good to see people kind of embody that, competitiveness
Any
for an event, which was good.
any
Do you have any?
unscrupulous nonsense?
Well, I was about to say, do you have any dodgy moments, or was it
Tom
all in good
Bombadils or
spirit?
No, Bombadil was banned for this event.
I saw
So
a big thumbs up from me.
Big
yeah, I
decision.
didn't want to deal with that, especially, with some of the recent history with the Bombadil. I just thought this is not something that we wanted to. And yeah, look, everyone had a good time. We did have a Vanquishers, spoiler alert, show up as well. And I'd like to have a chat about it with you guys because I was considering after this event here, with what Vanquishers can do at 800 points and even Black Riders, like the game that you play. I was actually considering putting like a 6 model count and up ban. So if you want to run under 6 models, like you can't at the event, and I think it solves a lot of those skew type of Bombadil Vanquishers lists
People used to run
purely
um,
for the sake of
that.
having a good time at all, across all games.
So for me, I think the problem is that if you're going to have a veto tournament, and I understand why veto is popular, and I understand why people want to do it, but it does unfortunately make very skew lists more strong, and that's something that you have to reckon with. So if you want to run veto and you don't want to have like a Vanquishers Arms Race show up, then it can be a good idea. If you specifically don't like them, you can say no Vanquishers, no Black Riders, and that's okay. Like it's back in the day, people used to ban lists sort of by proxy by saying right because 700 points for Felbeast used to be incredibly strong. Running it was Witch King, Camel, Undying, Knight of Umbar, the Fab Four, the Beatles.
Mm.
They would be extremely powerful, and people used to say, "All right, 700 points, 6 model minimum," like you say, and then you're forced to either take a couple of scrub orcs and make your Witch King really small, which is something people used to
Hmm.
do because it was really good anyway, but it also allowed there to be a vulnerability that if you can get those orcs and kill them, it makes it way easier to break the army and stuff because 4 model armies are extremely good at not breaking because if they're 2 dead, it's like, right, well, we're not broken still. And then the 3 dead is like, bang, game over in
Hmm.
quartering scenarios, which is obnoxious. Um, I'm sort of, I don't like playing as the Vanquishers because they have they're really strong against some of my favorite armies, but at the same time, I sort of don't. I kind of come around a bit on them. I don't think they're too bad, but at the same time, like I don't blame anyone for having a crap time against them because they're that kind of army.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just a one-player game. You're like, the opponent gets to do stuff, and then you get to sort of watch, which I think is a bit annoying, but.
Yeah,
From a purely competitive standpoint, I don't have a problem with them because they have too many bad scenarios. But then you look at the veto system and you say, right, okay, so you're now getting the best, you're not getting the worst scenarios in any of the pools, and really they don't have a terrible scenario in the killing scenario or the what's it called, the secret object.
The unique.
What's it? Unique scenarios. That's it. They don't. Neither of those. None of them are bad for them. Maelstrom is Maelstrom, but you can get rid of the worst Maelstrom for you, which is on the battlefield. Objectives is never good, but you're also not going to play Domination because Domination is like too spread out. You're like, right, well, I'm playing Breakthrough, so there's a big 4-point objective I can go and take with my big fellas that you can't stop. And in Capture Control, you can tag and move on, so you can actually win those ones. So it really stabilizes some of the weak points of their build.
What I reckon, Jay, is just say ban Black Riders, ban Bombadil, and ban Vanquishers for fun purposes.
If you don't like them, don't be ashamed to ban them. Because 800 points, people understand.
Look, it was definitely like this is the big 2-day event, first one for me, and I think next time, obviously, with the new edition coming through next year, it'll be hopefully we don't have any more of these sort of lists coming through. But considering Queensland doesn't get together and play as often as what you guys do, I think in terms of having a good time for everyone, and the interest of the players is definitely something that I'll look to ban in future as well.
The worst thing that could happen, and
there's still sweaty power lists available.
Forgive me, because I have no idea how big Queensland as a state is, but the worst thing that could happen is somebody's new to the game, travels 100 miles or 160 kilometers, apologies, goes, great, and then first round they play against Vanquishers, and they've brought their lovely new painted army, and then they don't get to roll a single dice because it's just bam, 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 bam.
Correct.
And then that's their first game that they've played in a competitive setting. And, there's nothing wrong with that Vanquishers player doing that in a competitive setting. Correct. However, in a new community which you're trying to foster and you're trying to grow, it can
at least a bad taste in people's mouth, man. It's pretty simple.
Exactly. Especially in those matchups where you don't get to roll any dice. It can just completely ruin your day.
Like my mate played Goblin Town against Seize the Prize with the Vanquishers, and literally he had like a movement phase, he then had a courage phase, and then he was just rolling dice, and maybe out of like 30-40 courages, he maybe got 4 or 5 onto the models, and they just went transfix. Next game, off we go. It was like, but it was a complete gamble. If he had managed to get to the objective first, pick that up, and then Grinner can do Grinner things as well, it would have been a very different game as well. So look, there are definitely counters to the list, and there are ways that it can just not win certain scenarios. But I think in terms of just overall how you play, that gets tough.
Yeah. They're perfectly valid lists to play, but they are just.
Well, I mean, I think they're completely fine. They're competitively unique and interesting, and they have their counters. But if you don't want to have them in your tournament, ban them. That's fine. I don't think anyone's going to be too upset about it. I would say Seize the Prize is a uniquely terrible scenario to play them at, because you have to double compel to be like, oh, you picked up the prize turn 1, did you? No, you didn't. Give it to me. And then they're like, okay, and that's it. It's brutal. Having played against it, Seize the Prize with an army that was very good into them and has still lost. I was maybe a little unlucky, but it was quite hard to deal with. They're very, very good at that scenario. Anyway, shall we look at some lists?
Well, firstly, I want to say Toowoomba. Is it Toowoomba?
Yeah.
Yeah, Toowoomba, Queensland. I just wanted to be able to say that out loud. Was
Nice.
where it was
Good
located.
feel.
Best painted was Elias W, and most sporting was Lisa T. And let's
Oh,
move
bro!
on
Shout out to Lisa. Just a quick story. Lisa actually is a mum in the community who has been playing with her 14-year-old son at the local battles, like the local store, for probably a year and a half now, because he wants to learn to play, and none of his friends around him play SPG at all. So she's learned to play the game.
That is
And
so cool.
this is her like first big tournament. She was really nervous, and she had an absolute hoot of a time. And so yeah, I'm absolutely stoked that she managed to walk away with two trophies. She got best sports and third best painted for the weekend as well. So it was a nice wholesome hobby story.
And that's what we want
to walk
for new
away.
people, is we want them to come to an
Oh,
event,
bro.
feel appreciated, have a great time, maybe win a
Yeah.
couple of prizes. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's lovely. I love
Yeah.
that,
It was
especially
really cool.
doing it because you want to play with your kid, because your kid doesn't have other people to play with. That's a great story. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What's going on, Felicity Allen? Why didn't you play Lord of the Rings with me? Huh?
Huh? All right.
Moving on to the best painted photos.
Oh, dude. Dude. You can talk to Elias.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to the list.
Done. It was really
for
cool.
those of
So
you-
Elias actually ran like an all troll list, and he's converted all the trolls. I really wanted to send you a photo, but Elias didn't get back to me in time. Slash still hasn't gotten back to me. So he's converted all of the trolls to be someone from the Fellowship, but he's called them the Bellowship. So we've got Bam instead of Sam, and Brodo instead of Frodo. And he's
is
actually
very
like
cool.
sculpted a frying pan on the troll as well. Just like he's done such a great job. And no one gets to see it because he didn't reply to me. So yeah.
Yeah, for those of you who are purely listening to the podcast, I posted the Fairly Odd Parents dad meme where he's like, and here's where I'd put my trophy if I had one.
Yeah.
I did that, but with best painted photos. So yeah, now
Yeah.
I've ruined the joke. Moving on to the third place list. Ori S with what I would say is a very, very iconic Middle Earth list with the fiefdoms. 799 points. Right, okay, immediately skip, move on, get to the next one. He hasn't spent that 1 point. He's got Prince Imrahil on horse with lance, 9 knights with horse and lance, which is pretty chad, a man at arms, and a knight of Dol Amroth. He's got Angbor the Fearless with 6 knights, 5 man at arms, and 4 Blackroot Vale archers, and Forlong on horse with 5 knights, 6 man at arms, and 4 Blackroot Vale archers.
What in tarnation?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Jay, can I ask which pool did you not play?
Jesus.
You did 5 rounds, so you must not have played one of them.
Were you not
I want to
expecting
say
to
it was
be
the
interviewed?
scenarios. I think it was the scenarios one.
And what did you have for lunch?
Okay. Okay, so
I didn't actually have much on the first day.
Oh
my goodness.
Look
So
after
busy.
yourself, TOs.
So, all right,
I know.
9 Knights of Lamroth on horse with the lance is completely insane.
Yeah.
But
Very cool.
I kind of rate it. So this is pretty much, yeah. So what he's got 12 Knights of Lamroth on foot, 12 men at arms backing them up. So he hasn't got any doubled up pikes, which for my money is not the way to do it. And he's got a crap ton of mountain models. He's got 11, including the heroes, which is a very powerful fighting force. Way more powerful than maybe it seems at first, because Imrahil beefs him up, and Forlong is a beast. This is just so far from how I would build this. It's quite funny to me. I think you can get away without a march if you have such a heavy mounted contingent. I still prefer having march, but fiefdoms getting march in is awkward. I really want more pikes in this. I think if it was me, I'd 2 knights and have four additional pikes, and then spend the extra 5 points on whacking a couple of spears on those Blackroot Vale archers, or I don't know, weapon swaps on your knights for maces or something silly like that. This is a little jab at what's his name? Yeah, who did this with his, because he liked medieval knights with maces. And he made a bunch of he converted a bunch of knights to have them because they are like real medieval knights. And I can't remember his name, and that's embarrassing. I want to say it was Jeremy something. Oh, that's bad. I should know that. Let me think. I don't know. Oh, I'm sorry, Joshua Bryant. That's it.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry about that. I think you should have more pikes, at least 4 more, and 7 knights is still a completely insane number. But that's keeping the theme of the list the same. But he clearly did go with it. Angbor offers for my money, Angbor is he's probably worse than a Captain of the Lamrath, because he still only has 2 might. Fearless is great, but also you've got to fight Courage 4 frontline anyway. I think actually maybe it's not that important. But also he can be a good pile-in hero. Oh, I don't know. I like this, but I don't like it. It's going against all my list writing instincts, but also I think it's very cool, and that's kind of a hard combo for me because I have a soft spot for the fiefdoms. I have a whole fiefdoms army that I basically never play.
There is part of me that's wondering, just beef it up to 50 models. You know,
you can do that,
especially 50 easy.
Yeah, I mean, if you drop 4 knights and then just fill it up with arms.
Yeah.
Oh,
look, Ori hasn't played in such a long time, and he came out of the woodworks to come play at a home event, and I saw 9
evidently hasn't slowed him down
armored Delamroth, and I just thought he's a madman. But this is such an Ori thing to do, where he writes a list. You look at it, you think to yourself, like, objectively, I would change so much, and he just plays so well because he's been playing the game for such a long time. And yeah, he's done such a good job. So really happy to see him back.
I'm a bit confused though, because didn't he die in the expedition to Moria?
Oh, you're thinking of a different Ori there, Stephen.
Aha.
Well
wait,
done.
is he that chocolate biscuit with? Is he that chocolate biscuit with cream in the middle? Oh, haha. Yeah, I mean, this is. I always love seeing the fiefdoms, and I always love seeing
the material on the podcast, Stephen.
the Knights of Dalamroth
for your stand-up set.
Yeah, coming soon to a basement near you. Second place, we've already chatted about them a little bit earlier.
Oh yeah,
it's Madeline B with the Vanquishers. Now, this is a bit of an interesting way to write the list, I would say. So it's Saruman, obviously leader, Gandalf, Galadriel, Elrond, and Radagast. Now, for my money, because Galadriel is only a hero of fortitude, I think she should be at the bottom. However,
but they've put the 3 mandatory heroes first.
They put the 3 mandatory heroes first, but Galadriel should be ahead of Gandalf because she's alphabetically before Gandalf. I don't know. I think that's a bit of a...
She was mandatory first as well. Originally, Gandalf wasn't even mandatory, so
yeah.
Anyway, that's some pathetic levels of pedantry. We sort of already talked about this to a degree. It's really good if you've got Veto. I'm guessing if you had 40 players, 5 games, did this go 5-0? 4 and a draw?
No, lost 1 game.
Okay.
Lost 1 game. So Alex,
did it lose to the eventual winner?
On the podcast. No. So Alex came up from Victoria to come play, and he took a no might, that's right, Angmar list, and beat Vanquishers in heirlooms.
Presumably that's...
So it's just one of those cases where Alex picked up the objective. I wasn't there for the whole game, but basically I saw a fight happening on this side of the board, and then a random Witch King hiding behind with the relic on the other end of the table, and that was literally the game. So
that is Vanquishers are sort of mixed at heirlooms because they do all have to come on in one spot, and then a guy with the relic on the other side, especially a guy like the Witch King who can afford to just sit on his will, and you can be like, all right, guys, you get all Zap Brannigan on them, and you're like, I'm going to throw wave after wave of my own men at these Vanquishers until they reach their preset kill limit.
Is there not in heirlooms? I would have thought it's, albeit it's a big slog, you can just non-lethal your way across the board with, obviously two of them do have to go lethal, but you just stun and run, you know?
Yeah, true.
I mean, run where though? I mean, if you
To the Witch
actually
King?
if you put all of the orcs in between the Witch King and them, they
Yeah.
either have to charge them and fight again, or they have to go around. But those orcs that they don't kill, aren't just disappearing. They're still there.
Still going to try and tag him.
Yeah, true.
Realistically, it's not happening. If it's far enough away, it's like, cool. How long do you got?
Yep,
Yeah.
2015.
They're not going to win every single. Like, if you go long enough, if you were actually going non-lethal the whole time, if you go long enough, they would just eventually lose fights and die. You can't really do that.
Yeah, fair point.
It's doable. It's very hard. You have to use Nature's Wrath and Wrath of the Brunnen to try and flatten some guys and get rid of control zones and stuff. But being real, if the Witch King is in a bit of in a cubby behind some line of sight blocking terrain, it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Having said that, though, losing a game, especially earlier on, can sometimes give you better matchups and against less tough players, so you can end up submarining your way. Second, losing an early game is a good way to come second at GBHL tournaments. If you're someone who's aiming for wins, such as myself, and it can really help. That's kind of what happened this year at Gates of Gondolin. I lost the first round against something that I maybe shouldn't have lost against, and then I won all my other games. And yeah, so smart.
So if you lose your first game and you're aiming to do well at the tournament, never fear. It's a very well-known thing that you can do is submarining, and you should always keep fighting to the end. However, if you lose your final game, you're a chump and you should quit the game.
Drawing your first game, that's big brain.
That's big brain.
There is that.
Yeah.
Big brain time, baby. And then you have to play that guy you drew with in the final round, and you draw again, and neither of you finishes on the podium. That's a galactic brain.
So
I've seen it happen, man.
We've had vanquishes of the. How about we have Necromancer?
Oh my god! Wait, really?
First place won by Nicholas F. with Rise of the Necromancer, Legendary Legion. He had, of course, the Necromancer. You can't leave home without him. And then 2 Abyssal Knights, 1 Lingering Shadow, the Witch King, and 2 Slayers of Men. Then also
Bruce said he didn't want to have any spears.
Yeah, I know, right? 2 Castellans with Morgul Blade.
I'm all about sacking off Kamal. Although what I would say is, our resident Rise of the Necromancer enthusiast Matt Pybus likes Kamal, and he plays a shit ton on that list. So I like the Castellans though. I think the Castellans profile is low key very good. 5-point Morgul Blade is amazing as well.
They also give you something that actually stays on the board that can kind of play bodyguard for the Necromancer, because I've played games where against Rise of the Necromancer where you just obliterate the Nazgul and then you either heroic combat towards the Necromancer or whatever, and then they can't, because they only resurrect at the start of the turn. They can't actually be in the way. Whereas if you've got the 2 Castellans, they can just be like, cool, well, we might lose a fight and lose a couple of fate, but we'll still sit there, be on the board,
My traditional way of playing against this list is get stressed out, be like, oh, they never stop coming back. And then at the end of the game, be like, oh, I won.
Yeah.
Because you remember that at the end of the game, they don't come back. And so you're just like, oh, I just killed them. And now I'm winning all the objectives.
Yeah, you're broken and not on the objectives. Excellent. This is just as planned.
That didn't happen to Nicholas though, because look at this. So I agree with the choice of the Lingering Shadow. The Slayers of Men are important. The Witch King, obviously, for the might. I don't know. I like the Forsaken, but obviously, if you're going to have, so I think mathematically, this is me being a nerd, but I think rerolls to wound is actually better than +1 mathematically. Until you get to the above 6s. So if you were fighting something that was D9 or higher, it is better to have +1. But I think
lucky he did, because we had someone with like 7 Vault Warden teams.
Oh well, I mean that would definitely be better there against them.
Correct.
let's say you've
But
got
then when you die, you're like pop behind them. You're like, hello, spears. Bash, 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 bash.
Yeah.
Let's say let's do some live maths on the podcast. Strength 4 against defense 7, so 6 is to wound, 5 is with a +1 to wound. However, it's 1/6 plus 5/6 times 1/6, so it's actually slightly worse with a reroll.
Oh fuck! Jumped on my own podcast.
However, I think once it goes from 5s to 4s, that's the point where it becomes better. So against D6, which is the majority of stuff you'll be hitting, the reroll is better.
So nice. I guess he's got 7, so I guess that. No, hang on, he's only got 6. What's the other one I'm forgetting? Camille, Forsaken, Headsman. Right. Headsman is a bit mid.
Yeah.
So I agree with. I don't think Camille or the Headsman are great. I think the Forsaken is better than either of the Abyssal Knights, but if you can't really have one. The Abyssal Knights are funky, so I'll give
the point of the Abyssal Knights is that they can do the swappy swaps, and it lets you do really cool things.
They got swap, but yeah.
Well, sorry, yeah, it lets you do cool things where like one resurrects and then the other one goes, "Cool, I'll join you. Hi, buddy." So it does give you a lot of flexibility.
Maximum shenanigans make sense here, to be honest.
Yeah.
The Lingering Shadow and the Witch King, I think, are the two best, purely for their ability to A, teleport, and B, have 3 might. That's exceptional.
Absolutely. This is such a Nick runs this list and has run this list to great effect for such a long time now. He loves the Abyssal Knights. Some of the plays and shenanigans that he can pull with the 2 Abyssal Knights, combo that with the Lingering Shadow, I think is something to not be understated either. So he's done a phenomenal job.
This is
what I really like about this list is this list really demonstrates how you can have an all ring wraith list or an all magic-y kind of spooky special all hero list without it being totally obnoxious to play against. Because I don't think this is totally obnoxious to play against.
It can be mildly irritating at times
to some of the others. And I think this one feels much. I think this one hits the balance of enjoyable to play against better than the others, and I don't think it's actually any. I think it's slightly worse as well, but like I don't think that's why it's more enjoyable to play against. I think it's more enjoyable to engage with it.
It's not. You get to roll dice when you're fighting it, and you get to kill stuff.
Correct.
The stuff does come back, but you are rolling dice, and that's the fun part.
You're actively playing an SBG game rather than a couple of I mean, I don't want to sit here and just rag on Black Riders the whole time, but it's like rather than having horses do their thing, you never really get to touch them, or you finally get into combat and they just go bap bap bap, and then you're not playing an SBG game. Full stop. This list. You go and you smack, you're fighting, you're shooting, you're doing everything that you want to do. They just keep coming back all the time.
You smack, you fight, and you fuck.
As you say, I don't. Yeah, I wouldn't want to rag on the Vanks too much, but it's nice to have the Morgul Blades here as well. I think two Castellans on balance is better than like the Forsaken probably.
Yeah,
because you wouldn't be able to be 20 points under. And Castellans, it's a real shame they lost the D7. I think they were absolutely nuts before. In the old edition, they were D7 instead of D6. Exactly the same otherwise, except they were independent heroes. But I mean, how often do you ever see them leading troops? But yeah, they're really
just
good.
Take 13 Castellans.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, like these guys absolutely love fighting dwarves. D7 dwarves. They're like, hello, 5/5, 2 attacks, strength 5.
Yeah,
they're like half trolls, but way more durable.
Yeah.
But they're very like half trolls, actually, when you think about it.
Gosh, I'm thinking about unnumbered tiers and running a necromancer list.
Listen,
now.
I've got a couple of lists. I've got a couple of lists on the back burner for unnumbered tiers, which is the necromancer with the Morgul crown and Narsil, and then like the Witch King, and then just spam Castellans for 1,000 points. I think that's pretty funny. If I'm honest, though, I think this list, just the regular version with all of the Nazgul and the Keeper, and then you have the Crown and Narsil on the Necromancer, is like
big brain. It's big brain.
Big brain. Or you take the Armor of the Sundered Land, but no losing will when you fight.
But you have to win the fight. You could just have a Staff of Power instead.
Listen. He's fight 7.
Okay. Right. Let's move on to some comments. We had quite a few this week, which is always nice to see. First of all, Duncan Peacock 2177 says, I've known Dave Sweeting for many years. He's a top gent. Mr. Farmer is correct. You need to see that force in person to truly appreciate it. It's super duper awesome. Truly a work of art. Yeah, agreed. The models in question are absolutely amazing. And Dave sending over a full video of his army was actually really nice. This next comment is going to make me feel very, very guilty. Dale Hasty 3883 says, I love seeing these event reviews each week. Hoping Fly You Fools gets covered in the next one as I got my first ever podium. Dale, couple of things. Firstly, I am genuinely very sorry. If I'd covered the Fly You Fools event as well, because it was a double list tournament, we would have had to have looked at 6 additional lists. Also, I wasn't sent the results for that event. In terms of the list. So I do apologize, but the people who literally were just like, here's the results, I prioritize those. So yeah, I do apologize for not covering your podium. Big congratulations. I believe you took a Mordor list. And Fly You Fools was an event by Charles Sims. Apologies to Dale, apologies to Charles. As I said, we wouldn't have had enough time. I'm very sorry. I'll post a full YouTuber apology that starts with me crying and sighing at the start next week. Davy Gravy 2 says, always happy to correct any heroics mistakes. Wow, okay. Firstly, there's no apostrophe in any heroics because it's not an abbreviation or a possessive, it's a plural. So please check yourself. I did win a GBHL winner dice last year, Farmer, and I've won 2 this year, completing the perfect trifecta with a red, yellow, and blue GBHL winners dice. The lack of awareness and publicity of this is quite saddening. Maybe you could write a newspaper article about it, Davey. Perhaps any heroics could use their superb and popular podcast to give everyone awareness of A, what they are, their dice you get for winning GBHL events, either 100s, 90s, or 80s. How to get them if you've won a GBHL event. Contact your region rep or the TO. The TO might have them, but it's more likely your region rep does have them. Your region rep for references, Tom Patterson if you're in the Southwest, John CW if you're in the Southeast, Will Champion if you're in the Northern region, Ned Merrick if you're in the Central region, or if you were in Northern Ireland, Ireland, or Scotland, it is the magnanimous and fantastic David Reed. How to get one if you were a GBHL TO? Contact one of the aforementioned reps. Hopefully next year will be a bit more.
If you're not a GBHL player, you should look into stealing them from a GBHL winner.
Yeah. Keep up Tolkien's work, guys. Now that is an appropriate use of an apostrophe, Davy Gravy. So congratulations. Gosh, I'm trying to rattle through these comments. I'm aware that Jay probably has to go to work at some point. Adam Paul...
No, sorry, my daughter's just waking up.
Oh, bless her. How old is she?
All good. She's 3.
Oh. Adam Paul, big shout out to Adam Sirens, says, after having run Isengard, Sirens, sorry, Adam, I've done it again. After having run Isengard for the last 2 years, only for 3 members of the All-Stars, as in the GBHL All-Stars, to win hundreds with it, Vince is starting the next trend with a plom. Don't you mean a bomb?
Who's the third person who's won with it?
Jay.
Yeah, I guess
West with it.
I just forgot because he hasn't won anything in so long.
Wow, shots fired. Bravo.
Yeah, sorry, Jay. He doesn't listen to this, I'm sure.
He's got better things to do. The only question is, when will everyone jump on this bandwagon or his bandwagon? Hopefully never, because...
Listen, Adam, I'm literally putting together crossbowmen right now, so that might answer your question.
I fucking hate siege weapons and bombs.
I don't have one, but I will.
Yeah,
there's
not
a while without
a good part of this game. And I'm not just saying that because I've recently lost the tournament to ballista and bombs, and B, because I love the Dragon Emperor now. I just never liked them.
Palanquin must be protected at all costs. Yeah, exactly. What I would say is, as you say, siege weapons are another thing that are a bit like, oh, you don't really play, because if they're like, oh, I rolled a 6, I rolled another 6. Ha ha ha! Look at that! I just killed your main model. Woo! And you're like,
great, thanks, bro.
Great.
Yeah.
I don't like siege weapons, but they're so unreliable that I'm. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have a go. I'm not that fussed about the ballista. I love the way the bombs have been played with. I've got some cookery going on in my brain right now. I've got some ideas.
Is it something we were discussing earlier?
The light of day. That was part of it, but no, it wasn't that actually.
Ooh, juicy.
I know.
Moving on to Will Johnson. Shout out, Will. You said you were going to send me results for this weekend, but you didn't. What's that about? Come on, mate. Been too busy drinking. Been wondering for a while if we'll ever see Mr. Farmer on one of the famous legendary Any Heroics bat reps. Fact check, Will. He's on 2 of them.
I was going to say, I was actually on bat reps before I was on this.
Yeah. Bat reps will return at some point. Once I've A, tidied my house and B, invested in gaming tables. Hopefully, I will be hosting people in Bristol because I've now got my mats and terrain. I think it would be great for players to see movement styles and placements of warriors. Now, for the 10% of people that would really enjoy that, there's also the 90% of people who just want to watch a fun game. I get what you're saying, 100%. Maybe if you pay Dave, he'll coach you on placement of warriors.
People have actually previously asked for more scenario masterclasses. Maybe we should actually do that at some point.
Yeah, maybe we should.
Could be bothered.
It'll be a race. We're doing that.
Oh, fuck. Shit. We need to get on that right now.
Yeah.
I understand he is such a busy man with the weekly hobby antics of not doing much, mind you. Winky face. As always, keep up the fabulous work of the podcast and reporting tournaments from around the world, literally around the world. Looking forward to the next week. Chitter chitter. Yeah, sorry for putting you on blast there, Will.
I love you really. My lack of hobby.
Yeah.
I bet.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Zeno Sophon says, I love this tournament concept so much, especially mightily fortified. Now, for reference, Jay, this was an event last week, weekend before last, where your leader, if you were in a pure list, got either Mighty Hero or Channeled Fortified Spirit to incentivize people taking big stuff like Sauron and Balrogs and whatnot.
There's a bunch of Balrogs.
Yeah.
Turns out Mighty Hero on the Balrog ups his reliability by quite an insane amount.
Yeah. He just
was it enough though?
He was on top tables. Yeah.
But they didn't make the podium in the end. But it was like it. I mean, the difference. I mean, Greg said to me, it's like the difference between getting a 6 52% of the time and getting a 5 85% of the time is like huge.
Yeah.
Because it means your Balrog doesn't whiff.
Checks out.
More tournaments should get creative like that. That is exactly the kind of Rivendell list I want to play in a tournament setting, in reference to Vince's list, but can't/won't because of things being the way they are. Cough, transfix, cough. Yeah, absolutely. When your big heroes are like Bolg and Gil-galad and Aragorn are getting transfixed out of the game, sad gamer noises.
Listen, if you brought Aragorn, what I brought was the Spider Queen and a Bat Swarm, and she goes, no.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Fat Hobbit Gaming, Leon Smith, big shout out as always, says, it was great to play you guys at the teams tournament. Apologies to Josh. I loved our game, but did keep saying I wanted to play John. I do love you, Josh. Honest, I do. Which which 4 armies do you think is the best 4 to take for a teams event? That's really difficult. I would say
big topic that.
I would say that is almost the topic for an entire episode on a quieter week. The short answer is you need at least 2 lists which are kind of take all comers lists. Something like Witch King Sully or Dragon Emperor. Yeah, Sultan Lothlorien. And then a skew list is really good to just let you eke out the massive 12-0 wins. Something like Vanquishers or Rivendell Knights. Something horrible to play against, basically. And then maybe
just go check out the Nations Cup videos.
Yeah, exactly.
There's so much chat on that because it was hot stuff for quite a while.
We really wanted to promote them. We went on and on and on for hours.
Yeah.
We had a lot of lists to talk there.
Underscore CCAN says, what do you think the best, most balanced points levels are and the worst? Best, in my opinion, is 800. Yeah.
700 is okay as well.
There's enough restriction with what you've got to the point where you have to make choices, but you're not at risk of running into the skew kind of Goblin Town-esque lists. The worst points is the lower points you go, the more skewed it gets.
Basically, the army list construction becomes in some ways less important at I think particularly bad below about 400. I'm on record as not being really a fan of 600 and below because it becomes a big, very, very advanced game of rock, paper, scissors. that is less bad when the meta is less solved than it currently is. But because we already know what's good at small points, it's like, okay, so there's Goblin Town, there's Hunter Orcs, there's Army of Lake Town, there's things that get lots of effective troops on the table are just better, and there's not a lot of skew. And the closest to skew you get is shit like Riders of Theoden or Chariots, which is like awesome, but also known about. Whereas at 800 you can build almost anything effectively, and
it gives you space to write a concept into a list without it being
pretty unlikely to get just like, oh, I'm just losing this game. It does happen, obviously. Like for example, Vanquishes at Lords of Battle is like no fun. But that's a specific scenario.
Moving on to a conversation between Dave and Tom GMCC. Dave, would you mind sharing some insight into Curious Goal and the points level it works? I've always wanted to try it, and I'm attending a Good vs Evil tournament, which is great for Shelob, but it's 600 points. I'm currently building this with almost 2 times as many orcs as the 12 orcs Shagrat can bring. Obviously, they provide spears, yet I can't help but feel 12 orcs may not be enough. And then, Dave, you go on to give some good advice, in which you say actually the 12 orcs is enough. It's very bare.
Well, you can't have any more orcs is the thing, but 12 orcs is enough. It works. Plenty of orcs. Your heroes do a lot of work, especially at 600. There isn't a lot that is much better than Shagrat, Shelob, and Gorbag at that points level. Maximize your killing rule. So like always do Gorbag first if your Shagrat's got something in. Basically, whoever's got, you want to try and make sure that the guy who has less kills goes first, and then he goes ahead of the other guy, and so on. Maximize your rerolls. It's not a very complicated thing though. Like this list, it works well. And especially Good v Evil because Good Side basically has 100% presence of either men, elves, dwarves, or hobbits. So Shelob gets her bonuses.
Shelob getting the bonuses in the list is absolutely cooking.
Here's a pointless fun fact about Shelob in that legion. She can kill herself and remove herself as a casualty at any time in her move because of how that rule is worded.
Oh, nice.
She's allowed to remove a friendly model within 1 inch as a casualty to get rerolls, which does include herself. So if you want to remove Shelob from the table for banter, you can.
I love that. I'd like to do that at some point.
Also, it's canon. I mean, Angolia literally eats herself. So go figure. It's a thing that spiders do. We know that's true.
Yes. Shadowcat 6 lives 639. It says, I think GW realizes there's fans of the Amazon show, so I think Sauron and some of the other potential bottles from it might not go legendary, as they want to try and bank off whatever popularity it brings in. I think that's a fair assumption. If GW have got the licensing to the Rings of Power stuff, then there's no incentive for them to get rid of a bunch of stuff that they're going to make models or rules for. I think Sauron, there's no way that goes into Legends because Sauron, like, he's literally in the movie and
he's the big bad.
He's the big bad, in case you haven't watched or read,
Spoiler alert.
He is, the Lord of the Rings. Do you know who the Lord of the Rings actually is?
Who's she?
Yeah. Sheesh. No, Sauron's definitely sticking around in some form or other.
I would be very surprised if Sauron does not stick around.
Yeah, me too.
Moving on to the final comment, which is a very interesting topic. Hox Gaming 5929 says, disappointing to hear that another GBHL 100 event, a game towards the top tables just agreed not to play each other, and this was allowed. Seen this happen myself recently at another, and it doesn't feel very sportsmanlike. David Gravy does then respond saying, think we need more information on this other than a comment from Farmer. Based on what we know, they had 48-inch range ballistas. Yada, yada, yada. Now, Dave and I were actually at the tournament and were, if not attempting to, then actually competing for the podium spots. Sorry, Dave, I have to throw the shade at you. I personally had no issue with what was done in the game. I think agreed draws in a situation where you're in an actual stalemate, there is no issue with that. What the situation was is that they were deployed across the board from each other, both slightly out of 48-inch range of the blisters, which is of course entirely possible because that's how Pythagoras works. if you've got a 48-inch side and then well, that's not Pythagoras, that's trigonometry, and then you extend it, it doesn't reach the far corner. And essentially the way it works was whoever moved first would then lose the game because they'd be moving into range and get shot. It's a stalemate. I understand that you might be disappointed by the concept, but in that situation, there is no incentive for either player to move.
I sort of feel like I understand why people don't want to opt into. I mean, it's lots of battle, so there's no way it would ever be. It's very unlikely for it to be a draw. Well, that's not true actually. A slightly weird situation, which isn't possible with a mirror match, really. But if you can break your opponent, that they have more kills than you, and you're not broken, you can have a 3-all draw. Other draws are much less likely. I mean, I don't like it very much personally. I think it has a real stink of like, let's not let dice decide this game, which is like, it's a dice game. Someone's getting screwed over, sure, but like, that's just how it is. But if agreed draws are allowed, I am like, okay, you do you. Like, I wasn't mad about it. Part of the reason they did agree the draw in the tour was because I lost my first round, so I feel weirdly influential on that front. And I feel sure they wouldn't have gone for the agreed draw if we drawed Stephen, because then they'd have basically been guaranteed to play one of us, and that sort of defeats the point of having a draw in the first place.
Yeah, I think it's
so.
Yeah, there's objectively no. I don't like the situation of agreeing a draw. However, what are you meant to say to those players? Whoever wins priority has to move forward.
If it's allowed, if it's allowed, then it should be fine. If your opponent, and then that's a good example of a situation where it explains why people do allow them, because like, you can't force someone to play a game differently. If you're like, well, I'm not moving my shit forward and let you possibly shoot me, because that would just lose me the game. Because in Lords of Battle, all it takes is a single hit and a wound, and you're losing.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that they deployed that way, I think, is a little bit weird, but also like, whatever. Like, I understand the logic. They put their ballistas down. They want to try and avoid getting shot. Ballistas are out of range of each other, and then suddenly it's like, well, I don't want to put stuff in range of your ballista, and so on.
Yeah, there was line of sight rain on the board as well. So
it's one of those things where they will have been talking about the possible outcomes before the game, and then their sort of caginess resulted in a bad deployment, which resulted in a no way to play the game.
Yeah.
I don't think either of them was particularly keen on playing the game either, because again, it feels really bad to be like, right, we have basically the same army with the same capabilities, but you won the heroic shoot roll off, and so you killed half my crossbows, and now you're winning the game. And it's like, that feels bad. I get it. You'd almost rather put yourself in a worse position in the tournament overall than take the risk of coin flipping a game. But also, I usually take the coin flip in those situations, but that's just me.
Yeah.
How often do you guys find that people just play for draws over there and are like, I'm happy to play for draws? Like, is that a thing where if someone can sit at the back of the board and literally do nothing for the game, like, because it does happen and it can happen. This is a perfect example of it. Like, in Australia, typically there are most people who will just go for it and have a game rather than sit there and kind of go, well, I'm not going to move. Are you going to move? No, I'm not going to move. Are you going to, like, you know what I mean? That stalemate.
Yeah,
comes to life.
I wouldn't have deployed in a way where that was possible if it was me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would have deployed in the middle because I see the advantage of taking the strong position. But also, if you're trying not to get shot, if you're coming to the game with that mindset, then I see how that could happen. But it's really not that common. There have been a couple of fairly highly publicized, like weirdly highly publicized incidents, which probably got more overblown than they deserved. But other than that, I don't.
I don't think. I think it's quite rare, if not almost never, that people before the game has started. I don't think people ever go, "Let's play for a draw." There will be situations where, for instance, I mean, you might be in a losing matchup and know that if you do get a draw, that's a great result for yourself, and therefore you play for a draw. as in to not risk losing VPs, but also not venture gaining any VPs. That is a beneficial situation if you are in a situation where a draw is enough for you. So let's say you're on 5 wins in a 6-game tournament, you're the only one on 5 wins. If you go 5 wins in a draw, you will win overall. There's no incentive for you to play to win. All you need to do is get a 0-0 draw or a 1-1 draw, and that's perfectly acceptable as long as you haven't said to your opponent at the start, let's just have a draw, or let's force a draw. If you are in an enforced stalemate where neither player wants to take any further action because it would disadvantage them, the TO coming over and saying, no, you guys have to roll dice, you have to move your models around the board, like
you have to roll priority for literally 2 hours straight.
What's the point? Just let him chill and go grab a beer. And I think until you've been in that situation or witnessed it happen, it's a bit different, because there was a particularly high profile incident last year, which was there was a quite frankly unacceptable reaction from a large portion of the community, both internationally and in the UK, because the whole thing was not as it was described, but we don't necessarily need to get totally into that now. But if a draw benefits both parties and neither players want to go for a win because they risk a loss, then is that their fault?
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's difficult because you can't force people to play the game, because then at that point it's like, I mean, without being too dramatic, it's like, can you thought police how people play the game? You know what I mean? Like, can you be like, well, I don't think you're playing seriously enough to try and win. It's like, well,
you didn't call a heroic move. You're intentionally sandbagging this game.
Adjudicators to watch every top table to make sure they're all trying to win at all times. It's like, that's not.
Yeah,
it's not a thing, and it's like, it's tough. You can't remove it from the game, and trying to do so will probably cause way more problems than it solves, in my opinion. And I think the problem that it is purportedly solving is fairly overblown in the first place. Like, it really doesn't actually happen that much.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't have a huge problem with it, especially if it's explicitly allowed, like at certain tournaments, like at the GP, for example. There's a segment that was back explaining that, like, I can't force you to play, and the format, especially on day one, has incentivized draws to a certain degree. But that is a difficult situation to be in, and Denby here knows full well that I don't like forcing draws personally.
Yeah.
Even if it disadvantages someone that I would like to do well. So.
Oh, but yeah, to summarize POX or PDO QQS, I was one of the players who both Dave and I were players who it would potentially have affected and did affect. And I had no issue with the situation as it happened. If they both said at the start, let's deploy in a situation where we can't shoot each other and then force an agreed draw, that's totally different. But obviously we have no evidence and cannot possibly say that did happen. And I don't think that did happen, because I know both of the players and that does not seem like something they would do. That was a bit of a heavy and deep note to end the podcast on.
Right.
But I think it's always important to have these conversations rather than just letting them fester.
And then everything starts online.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Just gets very potent very quickly for no reason. Be nice to your fellow gamers. You're not there. Take a breather. These are plastic toy soldiers that we are playing with. If they would prefer to go and have a beer in the interest of their fun for their weekend that they've paid money and time for, bro, chill.
Yeah, exactly. It's
really, that's how it comes down for me.
Similarly, if I was playing Contest of Champions against a fully unwinnable matchup, and I was like, you've killed my leader and scored the points. Like, let's say we're playing Hobbits against Azogs, and Pits of Guldur. Azog's already got his 3 kills, killed my leader. Is there any point in me playing that game out? I could, in theory, break you, sure, maybe, but let's be real.
That should be your choice. You
want to go
yeah, exactly.
If you're the punished player in that context, it's It's your choice. Like when I played I played the contest against Ben at no, was it Ben? Fuck, I've forgotten his name.
The
No,
Pigmar guy.
I shouldn't have even brought up name. Was that
the Pigmar guy? Rob.
Pigmar guy? Yeah. What's his name?
Rob.
I'm so bad with names.
Robert.
Yeah. So he had hobbits with Merry on foot as his leader. I had 2 great beasts of Gorgoroth and Suladan as my leader. Suladan killed Merry and got 3 kills on turn 2. And then it's like, cool. So I've got 2 great beasts. And at that point, I'm like, what do you want to do? And he's like, let's play it out. And he did end up breaking me because my 2 big great beasts crashed into each other and they both died. So that's funny to watch.
Yeah. Ultimately, if you want to play the game out for those, hour, 2 hour long that it could be in those situations, great. If you don't, that's fine too. You're a human being.
It's as long as you want to keep playing.
Yeah, exactly. But that was this bumper episode of podcast, an hour and 40 minutes of gloriously honeyed words from the 3 of us. Thank you always to 7th City Collectibles, our lovely affiliates. Link down in the description below. Get your tickets, sell your items, buy stuff. Thank you again, Jay. It was a big pleasure having you on, and hopefully we'll see more Mountain Goats gaming tournaments and more Queensland events as well coming up. That will be
great. Sure will.
Excellent. Also, another big shout out again to Jack Thurlbeck and Dirk Van Summerson. Dirk Jan Summerson, oh my God, we're terrible with names today, for sending your results in, and link to the Northeast GBHL group, hopefully in the description if Stephen remembers. We'll catch you on the next one. Remember to comment, like, share, subscribe, support your Hobbit hobby. And until the next one, chitter chitter.
Chitter chitter.
Oh. Chitter chitter. I forgot to say it last time.
That's all right. We'll take. Now you've said it, you don't have to come back for a 3rd one if you don't want to.
I really hope people don't forget their names constantly.
Yeah, hopefully not.